Summer 1943. Camp Crossville, Tennessee. A German soldier stared at the bottle in his hand. Brown liquid fizzed and popped. Something he had never seen before. For 2 years in North Africa he had survived on hard biscuits and ersatz coffee. Yet here, in an American prison camp, he tasted Coca-Cola, a sweet, carbonated impossibility that cost just 5 cents at the canteen. Guards told him it was the same price American children paid with their allowance. Across the United States that summer, 371,000 German prisoners would discover an America nothing like the one described in Nazi propaganda. They expected weakness, poverty, and starvation. Instead, they found ice cream as a routine dessert, soft drinks as everyday beverages, and candy bars so common that guards handed them out casually. For men raised in a Germany where chocolate had vanished from store shelves years earlier, these small luxuries struck with more force than leaflets or speeches. Sugar, carbonation, and abundance quietly dismantled Nazi ideology, revealing that their own deprivation had not been noble sacrifice, but needless suffering. The transformation began at the moment of capture. In May 1943, the surrender of the Afrika Korps in Tunisia brought 250,000 German and Italian soldiers into Allied hands. They braced for brutality. Propaganda had told them Americans would treat prisoners harshly, perhaps starve them. Instead, within hours, they received American K rations. Though U.S. soldiers often complained about them, the packets seemed like feasts. Crackers, processed cheese, fruit bars, candy, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. At processing camps in North Africa, the U.S. Army even served pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk, foods long gone from German rations. This pattern of abundance continued on the Atlantic crossing. Liberty ships, mass-produced at astonishing speed, one launched every 42 hours, carried up to 30,000 prisoners a month to America. Each man was issued roughly 3,500 calories a day. Fresh bread, meat, vegetables, coffee with sugar and milk. Refrigeration systems kept food fresh for the entire voyage. Most remarkable of all, prisoners were served ice cream at sea. Logs from the USS General M.B. Stewart record 10-gallon batches of ice cream churned and shared on the 4th of July. For men who hadn't tasted it since childhood, eating frozen dessert in the middle of the ocean seemed almost surreal. And the surprises kept coming. When ships docked at Norfolk or Newport News, prisoners saw American ports dwarfing anything in Germany. Norfolk's naval base alone handled more cargo daily than major German ports managed in a week. At workers' exchanges, shelves overflowed with candy bars from Hershey, Mars, and Nestle sold at the same 5-cent price everywhere in America. Then came the train rides inland. Unlike the cattle cars of Europe, German POWs traveled in passenger coaches. Dining cars served meals of fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. What astonished them most was realizing this was not special treatment, but ordinary American service. From Coca-Cola bottles to ice cream makers at sea, every encounter rewrote their understanding of America. What began as amazement at sweets became something deeper. A recognition that industrial abundance itself was a weapon, one that undermined Nazi faith more effectively than any battlefield victory. The American prison camp system, built in the early 1940s, shocked German prisoners with conditions far beyond the minimum standards of the Geneva Convention. Camp Crossville in Tennessee was typical. Electric lighting, hot water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. Yet the real surprises were found in the camp exchanges, the PX stores. Quartermaster records reveal these exchanges stocked shelves with soft drinks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, alongside candy bars, chewing gum, tobacco, fresh fruit, and even beer. Where refrigeration existed, ice cream appeared as well. Prisoners earned 80 cents a day for labor, later raised to $1, with Coca-Cola and candy bars both priced at 5 cents. A single day's wages could buy 16 treats, luxuries beyond imagination in wartime Germany, where such items were scarce and usually available only through black market connections. For many prisoners, Coca-Cola became the very symbol of American abundance. Company archives confirm that in 1943 alone, production exceeded 5 billion bottles. The U.S. military guaranteed servicemen everywhere the same 5-cent Coke, a promise requiring staggering logistics. German prisoners soon realized this was no propaganda. Every camp received deliveries. On work details, they saw vending machines at gas stations, coolers in schools, bottles stacked in factory break rooms. To Americans, Coke was so common that half-finished bottles were tossed aside without thought. Technically minded prisoners were stunned by the consistency, whether in Maine or Texas. Coca-Cola tasted identical, proof of a nationwide industrial coordination beyond anything German factories had achieved. Company records show that camps like Hearne, Texas, received 200 to 300 cases weekly, with summer consumption reaching 7,000 bottles. Ice cream caused even greater astonishment. Most Germans hadn't tasted it since before the war. Yet in American camps, it appeared with surprising regularity. Army records show that ice cream was considered vital to morale, important enough that the Navy built entire ice cream ships for the Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the July 4th celebrations in 1943 featured hand-cranked ice cream churned by the gallon, using ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavorings to German eyes. The casual use of scarce resources, ice in summer, sugar and cream for entertainment food, seemed almost incomprehensible. By 1944, electric ice cream makers were common in larger camps, producing flavors like chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and butter pecan, more variety than German parlors had offered before the war. Prisoners could buy ice cream bars or sandwiches for 10 cents. And procurement logs show orders of 50 to 100 gallons weekly during summer. Sugar itself left a deep impression. In Germany, civilians received just 280 grams a month, strictly rationed when available. In American camps, sugar sat openly in bowls on mess hall tables, free for unlimited use. Quartermaster records show 100-pound bags delivered weekly. Cakes, cookies, and pies appeared on menus with astonishing frequency. Coffee and cereal were sweetened without restraint. At Camp Aliceville, Alabama, when summer humidity ruined several hundred pounds of sugar, American staff simply threw it out and ordered more, an act that horrified German prisoners accustomed to salvaging every crumb. Chocolate completed the lesson. Despite wartime limits, manufacturers like Hershey, Mars, and Nestle produced millions of bars monthly. The U.S. military alone bought 380 million pounds during the war. Camp PX stores reflected this abundance, offering multiple varieties, yet another reminder that in America, even in wartime, sweetness was never scarce. To German prisoners, these foods were not mere indulgences. They were daily demonstrations that America's industrial democracy could provide more for its citizens and even for its enemies than the Reich ever could for its own people. For German prisoners, even chocolate told a story of American abundance. The standard Hershey bar, emergency rations, and a wide range of candy bars sold in camp exchanges cost only 5 to 10 cents. What amazed the prisoners most was not just the quantity, but the choice. Americans casually picked their favorite brands, Hershey, Mars, or Nestle, as though variety itself were a birthright. Monthly Red Cross parcels reinforced this impression. Records show that standard packages included chocolate or candy bars, instant coffee, processed cheese, canned meat, crackers, soap, cigarettes, and writing materials. These extras distributed to enemy prisoners exceeded what German civilians often received as their main rations at home. The holidays deepened the shock. Thanksgiving 1943 brought prisoners face to face with an American tradition unlike any other. Army records confirm that every POW camp served the same meal as U.S. soldiers: roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. The logistics were staggering. Feeding millions of soldiers and 425,000 prisoners the same menu demonstrated a national capacity that dwarfed German supply efforts. Even more powerful was the message: equality of treatment that shattered the Nazi worldview of racial hierarchy. Christmas that year revealed something different: civilian generosity. Across the country, church groups, civic organizations, and local communities sent gifts to German prisoners. The American Friends Service Committee alone distributed 50,000 Christmas packages filled with cookies, candy, books, games, and toiletries. At Camp Tonkawa in Oklahoma, townspeople delivered homemade treats to the very men their sons were fighting overseas. At Camp Hearn in Texas, church groups brought Christmas cookies and candy. Such gestures bewildered the prisoners. Nazi propaganda had painted Americans as brutal and vengeful. Instead, they found kindness, mercy, and a generosity that came even from those with personal losses in the war. As labor shortages grew, more prisoners worked outside the camps, often in agriculture and food production. By 1944, roughly 100,000 Germans were employed on American farms, in orchards, and in canneries. In Michigan, they picked cherries destined not for survival, but for maraschino garnishes topping ice cream sundaes. The sheer volume astonished them: tons of fruit used for decoration. At canneries, they saw flawless peaches and pears discarded for minor blemishes. Del Monte records from 1944 note that 15% of fruit was rejected, often sent to animal feed, for men who had watched Germans starve. This waste was incomprehensible. Sugar beet production in Colorado and Nebraska revealed mechanization on a scale far beyond German capabilities. Single farms produced more sugar beets than entire German regions. U.S. production of cane and beet sugar combined reached 7 million tons annually, explaining the casual abundance they witnessed daily in camps. Some prisoners worked near schools and saw early school lunch programs in action. Children received hot meals with milk, vegetables, and protein, sometimes even ice cream for an extra nickel. To men whose own children faced hunger back home, the sight of American children eating frozen desserts at school left a lasting impression. Even at diners under guard, minimum security prisoners encountered democratic abundance. A hamburger cost 25 cents. Coca-Cola a nickel, pie 15 cents, and a full dinner 75. Here, a factory worker and a bank president ate side by side, served the same food at the same price. To Germans raised in rigid class hierarchies, this equality of access was as striking as the abundance itself. By 1944, American publications openly documented production statistics: 7 million tons of sugar, millions of tons of meat and grain, and consumer goods measured not in scarcity, but in surplus. For German prisoners, these numbers explained what they were living daily. The abundance of chocolate, sugar, ice cream, and Coca-Cola was not illusion. It was the reality of an industrial democracy whose strength was measured not only in weapons, but in the everyday luxuries it could provide even to its enemies. The numbers themselves told the story. In 1943, America produced over 380 million pounds of chocolate products for the military alone, 5 billion bottles of Coca-Cola, more than 500 million gallons of ice cream, and 119 billion pounds of milk. By comparison, German production limped along. Sugar heavily rationed, drawn mostly from beets. Chocolate reserved for military priority only. Soft drink production minimal. ice cream virtually non-existent, milk severely rationed. American newspapers published these figures openly. They revealed that U.S. wartime production outstripped even Germany's pre-war peaks. By late 1944, the imbalance was so great that German prisoners in America began sending food packages home, rather than receiving them. Using camp wages, POWs purchased chocolate, instant coffee, and canned goods, which were shipped to families in Germany. International Red Cross records confirm this reversal. During captivity, German POWs mailed roughly 11 million parcels back home, most filled with American food, for starving families in Germany. These packages carried profound symbolism. Abundance was arriving not from the Reich, but from relatives imprisoned by the enemy. The psychological blow to Nazi ideology was devastating. Even American rationing underscored the contrast. U.S. citizens complained bitterly about sugar rations of £2 per month, more than triple the German allowance, when sugar could be found at all. Meat rationing in America allowed 28 ounces weekly per person, far more than Germans received monthly. Office of Price Administration figures show Americans consumed an average of 74 pounds of sugar per person in 1944, 10 times the German level. 2 prisoners. It was proof that even rationed America lived in luxury compared to Germany. Beyond Coca-Cola, POWs discovered a vast soft drink industry. Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and dozens of regional brands competed across the nation. Bottling plants in every major city churned out millions of bottles, each one capped, labeled, and distributed with industrial precision. By war's end, Americans consumed billions of bottles annually, dozens for every citizen. This single consumer industry alone exceeded entire German production sectors. The final ideological collapse came in spring 1945. Newsreels showed American soldiers advancing through Germany, handing chocolate and gum to German children. For prisoners in U.S. camps, the contrast was searing. Their families at home starved while American troops carried enough candy to give away freely. In liberated concentration camps, POWs saw film footage of GIs sharing rations with skeletal survivors. The message was clear: America used its abundance not just for itself, but for mercy. When the war ended, German prisoners returned to a homeland in ruins. Many had gained weight in captivity while their families lost it in freedom. Medical examinations confirmed it. POWs came home healthier than when captured. Some carried Red Cross parcels packed with chocolate, coffee, and canned goods, treasures to children who had forgotten such tastes even existed. In the years ahead, these men became unexpected advocates for American aid. They had learned that American power came not from conquest, but from production. Prosperity was created, not stolen. Many supported the Marshall Plan, convinced by what they had lived, that industrial democracy could outproduce dictatorship. The economic miracle of West Germany in the 1950s was shaped in part by lessons absorbed in American prison camps. Former POWs who had watched Coca-Cola deliveries, ice cream churns, and endless sugar supplies now applied those insights to rebuilding their own nation. The transformation is thoroughly documented. Military Quartermaster reports, International Red Cross records, corporate archives, censored correspondence, memoirs, and academic studies. Historian Arnold Kramer, the leading authority on German POWs in America, summarized it best: food abundance was not just nourishment. It was the central weapon in the ideological transformation of an entire generation. Historian Arnold Kramer's research confirmed a striking truth. Casual American abundance accomplished what formal re-education programs could not: the complete demolition of Nazi superiority myths. The numbers alone told an irrefutable story. Between 1943 and 1946, German prisoners in America consumed 3,300 to 3,600 calories daily. They had 4 pounds of sugar available each month. 32 ounces of meat each week, a full quart of milk every day, ice cream served regularly in the summer, and soft drinks available without limit for 5 cents each. German civilians during the same years lived on little more than half that. Daily calories averaged 1,200 to 1,500. Sugar rations amounted to 280 grams monthly. When available at all, meat was cut to barely 10 ounces weekly, often missing entirely. Milk was almost non-existent. Ice cream had vanished. Soft drinks were unheard of. These contrasts weren't propaganda, they were documented fact. Enemy prisoners in America ate better than German civilians. A reality that shattered Nazi claims of superiority. The experience reshaped post-war Germany in profound ways. Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, quickly becoming a symbol of American alliance. Ice cream parlors modeled after U.S. soda fountains appeared in German cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became emblems of recovery. Many former prisoners even became importers of American products. Having witnessed firsthand their universal appeal, they understood these goods were more than food, they symbolized democracy, modernity, and abundance. The introduction of supermarkets to Germany in the 1950s was championed by men who had seen American grocery stores. They knew democratic plenty required not just production, but efficient distribution. In countless interviews and memoirs, former POWs described food as the most transformative lesson of their captivity. One Afrika Korps officer, interviewed in 1975, recalled, "We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could give ice cream to its enemies. That was when I knew we had lost more than a war, we had lost our entire worldview." Another veteran, decades later, remembered his first Coca-Cola. It was like drinking the future, sweet, fizzing, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany wasn't. Abundant, democratic, joyful. These testimonies confirm that American food abundance achieved what battlefield defeat alone could not. Ideological transformation. And it succeeded precisely because it relied on observation, not instruction. Prisoners saw with their own eyes a society functioning at peak productivity while extending dignity to its enemies. Food made the lesson universal. Hunger and satisfaction need no translation. Every meal was a demonstration of industrial capacity. Every Coca-Cola bottle proved the power of standardization and distribution. Every ice cream sundae showed that abundance could be democratic. The legacy extended beyond the prisoners themselves. Their children grew up hearing tales of ice cream, candy, and endless choice in American camps. At first, these stories sounded fantastical. But as West Germany recovered and American products arrived on its shelves, reality confirmed memory. Supermarkets, soda fountains, candy aisles all matched the stories fathers had carried home. Generational influence reshaped German society. Lessons about consumer choice, quality control, and democratic markets became cornerstones of West Germany's economic miracle. What began in POW camps ended with McDonald's restaurants across Germany, Coca-Cola on every street corner, and ice cream as an ordinary treat. The historical lesson remains. Abundance, not deprivation, was democracy's most powerful weapon. Kindness, not cruelty, transformed enemies into allies. What Nazi propaganda could not comprehend, Coca-Cola and ice cream accomplished. German prisoners who once believed in their own superiority left America convinced of something far greater, that prosperity created for all was stronger than any ideology of conquest. A worldview was shattered not by force, but by food. The German prisoners left America with a realization that changed everything. True power lay not in conquest, but in a nation's capacity to produce on a scale so vast it could afford to be generous even to its enemies. The country that sold Coca-Cola to captives for a nickel demonstrated a strength far beyond military might. Even the smallest indulgence carried a profound message. The ice cream sundae, layered with scoops of ice cream, rivers of chocolate syrup, clouds of whipped cream, chopped nuts, and a cherry on top, became a living metaphor for American abundance. Each single component exceeded what German civilians could dream of during the war. Combined, they represented an impossible luxury made casual, routine, and accessible to anyone. And in a cruel contrast, while prisoners could order seconds, German children at home struggled against hunger and starvation. This revelation revealed the total collapse of Nazi promises. Many former POWs later recalled the exact moment when their worldview cracked. For some, it was the hiss of carbonation and the fizz of their very first Coca-Cola. For others, it was the cold sweetness of an ice cream spoonful, or the simple pleasure of unwrapping a Hershey bar. These were not just snacks. They were experiences that burned themselves into memory, more powerful than any argument or lecture. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. The transformation was deep and permanent. Men who once marched under the banner of the Third Reich returned home as unlikely messengers of abundance. They carried a revolutionary lesson. Prosperity was born from freedom, not conquest. They had seen firsthand that America's greatest weapon was not its tanks, bombers, or artillery, but its ability to casually give its enemies Coca-Cola and ice cream. By the end of the war, bottles of soda and bowls of ice cream had achieved what propaganda and punishment never could: the complete transformation of enemy hearts and minds. German prisoners who once doubted such abundance could even exist became its most faithful witnesses. They returned home bearing an unshakable truth. Democracy didn't just fight with weapons. It proved itself with plenty. Freedom, they discovered, could taste like chocolate and fizz like carbonation. These men never forgot what they had experienced. To their families, still gaunt from deprivation, they brought home Red Cross parcels containing chocolate, coffee, and canned goods. Children who had never seen ice cream before learned of it from fathers who had eaten it weekly in captivity. The memories were so powerful they shaped not just individuals, but an entire nation's future. Their testimony echoed through post-war Germany. Sometimes the greatest victories are not won through destruction, but through demonstration. Not by taking, but by giving. Not with hatred, but with something as simple as a Hershey bar or a dish of ice cream on a hot summer day. The German prisoners who once fought against democracy became, through American abundance, its most unlikely ambassadors, forever changed by the impossible reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream in prison camps. They carried home the sweetest evidence that freedom had already won.